Get into, I'm going to do a little bit of the formal like intro, and then we can just go from there.
Cool.
And yeah, man. Thanks again.
Yeah, of course.
All right, let's do it. Hello and welcome to the Rat Nest Podcast, episode number 47 with Thomas Fernandez. Hey.
Thanks for having me, guys.
What's up, bro?
Man, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. Like I mentioned, it was just kind of like, hey, man, I like your stuff. What's up? And you're like, you want to do Thursday? I was like, perfect. Let's go. Let's get it under the belt.
Yeah, I'm trying to be better about like lining stuff up through the week, and rather than just be like, let me get back to you. And then like 3 weeks later, I'm like, fuck, I have like an inbox full of people that I said I'd get back to. So now I'm like, all right, I have to do this thing. Like, let's get it on the books. Let's like do this.
Hell yeah.
That's so important. Like, especially trying to do like a business or be an artist that is their business, is just responding to people and like getting back to them is insane. Like it's night and day, the response. If you wait too long, the opportunity is almost gone sometimes.
For sure.
Do you find it like harder? Have you been getting just over the years more built up like procrastination, stuff like that, where you have to make it a conscious thought to like reply to somebody?
Only sometimes. I feel like I'm way better at like being organized and not procrastinating since I've been like working from home more and tattooing a little less. So I have to kind of be a little more like organized, and it just kind of goes through waves where I'm like, if I'm too busy, I'm like, I'll put this off, and then it all kind of adds up, and then it's a little hectic. But I'm trying to be better about just like, as soon as I get something, respond, or like not trying to like pussyfoot around like, hey, I want to get tattooed or get this thing, and it's like something I'm not into, rather than like going through the whole song and dance of like seeing if they're actually serious. I'll just be like, I don't have time. I'm sorry. Like, you can reach out in another 6 months, but I can't like keep track of this right now.
For sure. That's funny because like, I'm always trying to think of new projects throughout. Like right now, I'm already like trying to plot for the rest of the year, and kind of timeline myself or give myself a little bit of an outline.
Yeah.
To like stuff I want to get going.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm good to respond and reach out the first time. And then people hit me back. They're like, we still doing this thing? I'm like, all right, it might got pushed back a couple of weeks. I don't know. We might still be doing it.
Yeah.
But it's funny how that works. It's like, you got to really be on top of yourself.
Yeah.
But you have to feel that a little bit anyways, being just like a full-time artist, like 100% creating for a living. So it's like, there's no other boss. You have to learn to manage it.
Yeah, you just have to do everything. There's not like a different department you can just pass something off to. It's like, okay, I'll do all this. I'll do this stuff.
Dude, yeah, that's Jim for me. If there's something I'm like, I can't get to, especially with the podcast shit, I'm like, Jim, can you do this, please? Dude.
I swear that's how I got into the podcast. Is he was like, hey, bro, I need some help doing this. And I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. And then it became like a regular thing.
Hell yeah.
I mean, realistically, it was worked out perfect for both of us.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
But don't you find that like bringing in somebody else to do a project with you, it goes like infinitely smoother, and it actually like keeps functioning,
Oh, big time. I'm under the impression that 2 brains do the same work as 3 people. You know what I mean? If you've got one extra person there with you, you can get 3 times as much work done.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's true, man. And it's funny because people just think in different ways. So the stuff that naturally I'm focused on, I'm worried about, like I'm working on, and then the stuff that Jim would naturally be worried about as far as like, I don't know, anything like behind the scenes, even the audio, the editing, the video, when's it coming out? He's on top of it to be like, all right, what episodes do we have today? Who's the interview coming up? What's doing this? I'm just on Instagram like, hey, what do you think? You want to talk? Like,
Yeah.
So it's funny how it works out like that.
But I'll tell you what, though, if it was just one of us trying to do it all, we wouldn't have made it through one season. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the fact that we're able to kind of disperse the load across, and there's only 2 of us doing this, but it's still like it's way easier than if it was just one person trying to do everything.
For sure. For years, like I've always had like my little like company or brand of like live rad stuff, but it's always just been like like a third tier thing, like, oh, I have some extra copies of this thing I designed, I'll sell them, or like, I've had this drawing I've been sitting on, I'll get some stickers made. But now, like, making this as more of a skateboard company, I brought my buddy Zach in and I was like, hey, do you want like part of this company and to do this thing with me? And like, we're actually able to get stuff made and like ship stuff out and like do events. And it's like crazy how just bringing in one person to help you with the project, like, actually makes it function, you know?
Heck yeah, man. It really
Absolutely. Dude, well, let's drop into that. Like, so Live Rad was always the, like, I don't know, moniker, not moniker, but you know what I'm saying, like the name of your project or your art name. And then when did you start tattooing? How far along into, like, what were you in your early 20s, or because you've been doing it a minute, right?
Yeah, I've been tattooing. Well, I started scratching when I was 17. And I'm 31 now. So that's like, I don't know, like 12 years or something like that. So like I started like just stick and poking friends at parties or whatever in high school. And then I made a machine out of an electric toothbrush and like sharpened guitar wire and like did some tattoos on myself like that. And at that point I was like, I think I want to learn how to do this. But I ended up like buying like a $60 kit, scratched up my friends for a little while with that. And then I was walking by this tattoo shop in OB that I used to, like, I'd gotten a couple of my first tattoos there. And the owner was like yelling at his apprentice out front, and he was like mopping something up. And I was like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, this guy's just a fucking dumbass, that's all. And I was like, well, if you ever want an apprentice that's not a dumbass, let me know, just kind of like joking. And he was like, all right, cool, come in on Monday. And I was like, oh shit, well, I guess I'm doing this now. So like I got my apprenticeship that way, and then just started at that shop. And that's like been the beginning of like professional tattoo artist, you know?
Yeah, that's fucking crazy, man, because the amount you travel and like you know, hop from shop to shop to do guest spots, like it's nuts that it is all based off of a whim. Like, who knows if how you might have gotten into it later, but like, who knows how long it would have taken if you didn't do that right at that time. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like a chance coincidence.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, like, that foot in the door was really like crucial, because I had always, like, as a kid growing up, I wanted to do a lot of things. Like, I wanted to be like a cartoonist, and I wanted to tattoo and like be a painter and all these things. So then when that kind of presented itself, it was like, oh, this is my time to do this thing now. And just kind of worked out well.
That's fucking crazy, man. That's awesome.
If we all, any of us look hard enough, there is that moment. It might not be as obvious as like, hey, I was walking down the street and mentioned it to a tattoo artist, but like, we all have that moment that pivoted our whole life, that when we can see now, but back then it was just like a simple decision to make, and it led us somewhere completely different in our life that we may not have ended up otherwise, which is so wild to think about, like how minuscule our decisions can feel or are, and then boom, how impactful it can really be.
Yeah, most definitely. That's why it's good to just say like yes to whatever opportunity, and then kind of figure it out as you go along, you know?
Yeah, 100%, dude. So with Live Rad, was that like, that was just like kind of something you started creating and putting your own artwork out underneath that name? Like, was that just your Instagram name that you caught on, or what? How'd you come up with that?
So like, even before like Live Rad, when I was in high school, I was already doing like commissioned art for bands and some small companies, just because like I've always like, I like to make art, I like to work. So I had another name, like a studio name, that I was putting out that work under. And then after like I graduated from high school and started some college, I kind of jumped around to like, I went to San Diego State for a year, and that kind of sucked. And then I went to community college in San Diego for a couple years, and that was cool. And then I transferred to an art school in the Bay Area, thinking like, all right, I'm going to like, already done 3 years of college, I'm going to finish off here and like do the art school thing. And it was such a bummer. Like, in my head, art school up there was going to be like a weird 60s beatnik, like everybody's painting and they're interesting people and doing experimental things. And then it was just like a bunch of boring trust fund like kids. And so I had this like moment, like while I was starting that school, I was kind of like, I don't know if this is really what I want to do. And I had already been tattooing for a few years at that point and doing the commission stuff. And I was like, I kind of just like think I could make a living just doing tattooing and doing like the illustration for bands and t-shirts and stuff. And I was in a critique and we were talking about like the student's work. And I remember saying something like, oh yeah, that the texture you got in this is really rad. It's cool how you did that. And some like fucker behind me mimics me to his friend and goes, oh, rad, sick, sweet, bro. And I remember at that moment being like, all right, fuck these dudes. And that was when I kind of like really stuck with like, I'm going to like do the rad shit that you guys think is lame. I'm going to like not compromise. And Live Rad was already something I was kind of like kicking around. So it was like, all right, like I'm really going to like work harder than all these like trust fund schmucks. So like branded this art studio, Live Rad Studios, and that was just going to be the banner for like my tattoo work, my illustration stuff, all that. And then I dropped out of art school and have just been like working ever since.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. That's a good organic story, like the way that shit comes about, especially when, again, you have that one moment that was like, this kid fucking mimics you, and it's like, boom, now got the motivation to do it now,
Yeah. It's like, fuck these dudes. Like, I'm gonna like actually make a living as an artist while you guys are just here because your parents said you had to do something or get a job.
Yeah.
So you went to art school.
Yeah. Dude, I went to San Diego City College for a couple years, and that was like the most fun college experience I think I had, because it was all people that wanted to be there, and like people that I was the the exception to that. I couldn't give a shit about school, and I was just kind of going to appease like my parents because I was 19 and just moved to San Diego from the San Bernardino area, so it was like first kind of like big city like grown up years, So I went to school just not knowing what the fuck I was going to do with it. But the art department was rad because all the teachers were working artists, but I felt like they were working artists on projects that were interesting and like, I don't know, relevant to the college scene, or like
for sure
the 20 somethings, So it was really cool to like learn. And I made a lot of great connections and stuff through there. But yeah, then I dropped out like when I was like 20, 21 to start fucking partying all the time.
Yeah, I went to Mesa for 2 years, and I know their art department shares a lot of the same teachers with City. And yeah, it's just a lot of them too also teach at like UCSD.
Right,
and it's like, oh, we're art teachers and we need to make a living wage, so we have to like moonlight at community colleges,
Yeah, dude.
But they use that time as like, all right, like you're all adults here, like I don't want to have to like hold everybody's hand. Like, let's just make some cool shit. And they would work on their own projects while they were helping us work on our own. So it was really like good free range, like self-development projects. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And they were real, because I feel like I got told more than once for sure, like, well, this isn't the best shit. Like, you can keep working on something. You might want to try something else. Like, it was, they didn't have the time to like bullshit you. You're not paying enough money for them to bullshit you. You know what I mean?
Totally. That weird, like pretentious air of like, I'm paying $60K a year to be at this school, or these kids are paying that much, so I have to kind of be this weird, like authoritative teacher figure. It's out the door. It's just like, man, I'm making peanuts working here. Like, I'm not going to waste my time or bullshit you. Let's just like be real about this.
That's fucking funny. Yeah, it's true. I want to jump back though, because we mentioned Live Rad Skateboards, but we didn't really talk about it. And it's something that just kind of got put together during the pandemic, right? In the beginning, 2001.
Yeah, I've always wanted to like have a skateboard company. But it's just kind of a matter of like when I would have time to kind of get that going. And then I wanted to kind of start it before the pandemic, but then during the pandemic, I'm like, well, I've got more time. I should try to get this going. But there's been like an insane weird shift in the skateboard industry during, like, because of the pandemic. So it wasn't it was like literally, it would like the smartest time to do it because the demand for skateboards were so high, but it was also like the hardest time to start a skateboard company because there was like a shortage on wood and like the glue for the laminates. And because all the factories in China that produced the boards for a lot of big companies were delayed and like couldn't ship stuff, a lot of the major companies started contracting out the smaller like local wood shops here, and they were buying up these big like contracts of like, hey, we want your production rights for the next 3 years. So being like a small like nobody like me, like reaching out to wood shops to try to get like 100 boards made was like impossible. So it took like 10 months to a full year to get like our first run of boards actually in hand after sending the order out.
Damn. Yeah, that's wild, dude. And then your first batch, did you just do all of the one design? Was that the I used to be punk? Or
Yeah.
what?
I'll grab it. So it's one design, one shape, but we did it in a couple different colors. And I think that's going to kind of be our MO for a little while. It's just kind of a nice way to like have some extra variety in your run without having to really add a major cost.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'll grab those real quick.
While he's grabbing those, I just want to say like the style of the deck, like new, almost like old school newspaper or something like along the back you'll see right now. It is dope, man.
Thanks, man. So we have it in 2 colors. This was like the second colorway we did, and it's all like collaged like 70s and 80s punk posters behind it.
Heck yeah.
But you know, it's like a fully silkscreen board, which is just like the coolest look, I think, for doing skateboards, you know, especially something that's like a very 80s shape. Kind of like,
what is that thing?
you know, it kind of demands it to be like a silkscreen graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Is that so? When you say you did one shape, it's one size? Is they're all the same width?
For this board, yeah. So
Gotcha.
There's another colorway, and it's the same yellow like deck. It's the same template, but then there's like the 2 different colors you can get it in.
Word.
And then the next one that we have that's coming out, the first color's already out, but I'm going to be putting these out next week, is like the creature from the Black Leather Lagoon.
Dude.
This crazy like creature shape that I designed.
Yeah, that's
like,
insane.
Crazy like rip off dagger tail and like these crazy scallops down the side.
That was what I was gonna ask next, was how long before you were like, all right, you guys could make us this order. Can you make us a custom like shape, and how much how much like extra work is that gonna be?
Yeah. I think that was maybe like 6 months or so after we got the first ones.
Nice.
So not too long. And now like production and availability has caught up. So it's not as bad as like what it used to be. So we can actually get boards made within like a month or a couple months now.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome, dude.
I have a question on like the process of getting that started. Like when I was a kid, we all dreamed about owning our own skateboard company, you know, where put all of our buddies on and sponsor them and all of that stuff. Like being able to just start your own skateboard company, it's not as easy as you're making it sound, where you're just like, oh, I had to get in touch with somebody and then I got decked 6 months later. Like,
yeah,
what did it actually go into, other than like, you don't need to go into what it is to start a corporation and all of that.
Sure.
But what did it take you to really like get through that process from idea to board in hand?
Well, I mean, I'm still kind of getting through it. Like I say I have a company, but I'm still kind of like getting the company set up and rolling, you know?
Okay.
Like I guess I had a contact, this dude, Jesse, who's a silk screener in Texas called the Cat Palace. I saw that he was silk screening boards for some people. And I think I reached out to him and was like, hey, I don't know, I would love to get some boards printed with you and made. So he was the original hookup because he knows this other wood shop. And it was a really easy process working with Jesse because he's such a cool dude. And I know how to lay out artwork for silk screening. So that was pretty easy. And that graphic that's on it, like that main zombie dude, I drew years ago for a t-shirt. So I was just kind of thinking like, well, I should use some stuff that I already have rather than like taking a totally new time to draw some new graphics.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot that goes into it, and I'm lucky to have a friend to help me with it, because it's like on top of designing the shape and the graphic, laying out stuff for print, having to communicate with the wood shop and the printer, having to like, you have to get like a seller's permit, and you have to pay taxes on California, and then you have your IRS taxes, and then you have to have like certain permits in order to get like custom boxes made to fit this, and like you also have to like make sure you've gotten like your packing tape and like your packing materials. And then if you're going to deal with t-shirts, that's a whole other guy you got to deal with. And like, if you're going to work events, like I'm going to go have a booth at SkaterCon out in Arizona at the end of the month. And they are like, oh, you have to fill out these forms to get like a temporary business license for Arizona. So I've been spending all day today, like Googling what these terms are for this form, and like, hopefully I have all the right stuff in order to like actually file for this. But like it's a big learning process, you know?
See, that sounds a lot more like what it is like to start a skateboard company to me, man. Like,
yeah.
I've looked at it like, me and Matt, both entrepreneurs trying to do our own stuff, and any sort of business that you're trying to get into is tough, especially if it's like a niche market like skateboarding is. You know what I mean? Like you said, you had to have that connection basically to get started. You already knew somebody, and that's what it takes a lot of times too, for whatever you're doing, art, whether it be creating anything.
You know, having that foot in the door is like what it's all about sometimes, you know?
Oh yeah.
90%. Oh yeah.
And I mean, going back to school, that's where I think they teach, or they try to like instill in you too, is like, you never know the connections you make. So just go to all this shit, like go to these events and meet people
for sure,
talk and socialize. And, you know, you're only selling yourself. So it's like, you're your own marketing.
Oh, and that's like how I know Jesse was like, I met some friends and I lived with them in Oregon briefly. And while I was there was a pizza place up there called Sizzle Pie, and they did a bunch of artwork stuff. And from moving up there and like going there was how I kind of like met one of the owners, and he invited me to participate in this like blacklight poster project where I got to like a bunch of artists got to design them and they got them printed. And the guy they got to print them was this dude, Jesse. And I really liked what he did for us. So I kept going back to him to print my posters. And then he was the hookup for the skateboard factory.
Damn.
So it's it's like this weird, like long chain of events that put me in the right place to kind of meet this dude who ended up helping me with this whole other chapter of shit, you know?
That's funny, man. Have you seen the response as far as like doing skateboard specifics to like doing posters or shirts or like different apparel and stuff?
Yeah, people have been stoked, and you know, we've had a good amount of support so far, and we have a couple friends that were like flowing to ride for us, but people have been really into what we've been doing. It's been getting a good response, and like boards have been selling well, and it's definitely encouraging to like keep putting time and money and effort into doing skateboards.
Hell yeah, dude. That's awesome. Yeah, I grew up skateboarding, so it's like to see that leap from just illustration to, you know, making your own company out of it. And again, during like COVID and stuff, it's admirable, because I mean, I've done the same thing. That's when I started Rat Nest, was the beginning of the pandemic, and it's been awesome, and it's been like fulfilling, and it's also been like the worst like headache. Why am I doing this kind of shit? You know? So, it's cool though, and it's cool to see like working artists like doing shit for themselves. Like I always respect that.
Hell yeah.
I was gonna ask you too, is like, when you were younger, did you skate? Like, did you start off like skating when you were like a kid? You were doing tattoos at 17, so I can only imagine you were skating at like 9.
Yeah, like I mean, growing up in San Diego, I'm sure for most people in Southern California, it's like Christmas comes around, you get a skateboard like from a very young age. So I've always had skateboards. And like, I remember even before I had a skateboard, like my older cousin it was either a Vision Psycho stick or is it a hippie stick? One of the like old Vision boards. He had no, not a Psycho stick. It was either a Gator Vision board or a hippie stick from Vision that he left at my grandma's garage. And I think it was just the board without the trucks. And I remember being a little kid and like taking it out and like stepping on it and trying to like get it to pop and stuff like that. But I've always had a board. My older brother skated and our friends skated a little bit, but they all kind of stopped like after 8th grade. So I never really like skated full time since I was a little kid. Like I kind of stopped a little bit too, but then I would get back into it like in high school. But even then, my friends weren't really skaters in high school. They were like people who liked skateboards. So it would be like hanging out at the skate park at night, and I would be like taking runs in a bowl while people would be like hanging out or whatever. So it's definitely within the last like 5 years, no, probably more than that. Maybe like the last like 8 years, I've been skating more than I have ever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on, dude. That's awesome. Yeah, I went. My brother-in-law like recently got back into it. He's been crushing like all the fucking time, and I've gone out like once or twice with him. And I'm just an old man now. I can keep up, but then the next day I'm literally sore like all day long. I just lay around like, oh, my legs hurt. Oh, my hammies. Ooh.
Yeah, it's brutal. I've been trying to like, especially the last couple of years, I'm trying to like mentally, I'm in training mode and I'm like trying to eat healthier. I'm like going to the skate park maybe 3 or 4 times a week, sometimes more. And I'm like lap swimming a few nights out of the week as like, I'm getting like my wife's brother-in-law, like does massage work. So I'm getting like massages from him regularly. And I'm like, I need to lock in these kind of health regimens so I can be skating into my like 50s or whatever now, you know?
Oh yeah.
So true, man.
It's crazy. It's your 30s are like, you don't think anything. I guess it all just catches up to you. Like I partied like my whole 20s. Now that I'm like in 34, I'm like, I'm feeling everything. I'm just like, oh, I didn't take care of myself for 15 years. Like, I wonder why I feel like shit all the time. You know?
Yeah. Spent a lot of time just sitting on my ass, like drinking beer and getting stoned. I definitely trying to make up for lost time being healthier now.
Yeah, dude. And then art too, like literally just sitting there for hours, like a lot of downtime. You almost have to force yourself to get into an active regiment because it's so like against your nature of what you're doing on the daily.
Sure. Yeah. That's my excuse for why I'm not a better skater is like while I was growing up and everybody was skating and like cementing in those core moments of skating, I was like busy drawing.
Yeah.
So that's my excuse for now why I'm not better at skating.
It's all right, dude. All the skaters wanted to draw better and all the artists wanted to be better skaters. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's that thing where just naturally you're jealous of the shit you can't do.
For sure. And also too, like there's no reality that I would ever be a pro skateboarder, but I can do graphics for pro skateboarders. So that's how I can contribute to skateboarding. So I'm okay with that, like that trade-off.
That shit's awesome, dude. I always think about that. Like I haven't ever done big commissions for anything like that. So when I see guys like you and Chris, like doing shit for, Santa Cruz and Spitfire and Slimeball or whatever, just any of the skate projects, I'm just so jealous because I'm like, oh, that would be so rad to have like the pro sport in your artwork,
For sure.
So crazy. Is there anything that like trips you out at this point that like you've done that you're like, damn, I can't believe I did that?
Every time I do something for Santa Cruz, I trip out. Like they just put out a series of videos of a bunch of the pros in Costa Rica or Puerto Rico, one of those. And they're all skating over there. And there's a video that's Jake Wooten and Eric Winkowski playing a game of skate, and they're both skating boards I designed for them. So I'm like in my living room stretching to go skate, and I'm watching this, and I'm like, what the fuck is my life? Like two of like the gnarliest fucking pros right now are like playing a game of skate, both on boards that I designed for them.
That's so wild.
Yeah,
for sure. Now, when you're designing those decks for those guys, like, are you getting to work with them on design, or are they just kind of sending you a list and like, or are you sending them multiple things and they pick one? How does that work?
It varies. Typically, I'm not working directly with the skater. It's like the art director's in the middle, the pros over here, and then I'm here. So the art director Tyler for Santa Cruz has like a good running list with the pros of like kind of themes they like, colors they like, things they're not really into. If they were to turn pro, or if they're pro, like what they would like for their pro boards. So there's always kind of like a running conversation with them. So then when it comes time for like, hey, we need a pro board for Eric Winkowski, or like Jake Wooten, it's like, okay, well, I have to like figure out like of these things he likes, what would be good ideas. And I'll come up with multiple options, and I'll kind of pass these thumbnails out. And if it's somebody who's already pro, then they'll talk with the pro. But if they're going to surprise them, then it's just with the art director. And they'll figure out what's the best direction, and then I'll just go from there. But like for Eric, both of the boards I did for him, he did like sketches on like post-it notes or like notebooks of like really crude like stick figures of like what he wanted. So I kind of like knew what he had in mind. So it's kind of cool to like have something to go off of, you know?
It's fucking wild, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And there's a classic example of the skaters wishing they were better artists.
Totally.
Hey man, it works for some of them to stay at that skill they're at. I mean, like look at Neil Blender. He started he made it like, hey, you can be a skateboarder and be the level of artist that you are, and that's fine. Like you can be a famous artist for what you do, you know?
Yeah. Blender. I mean, Mark Gonzalez, like people would look at his art and not know who it was and like wonder why it's art, kind of thing.
For sure.
But like if you know who Mark Gonzalez is, you're like, this is fucking genius. You know?
Definitely.
It's so crazy. There's that parallel. It's almost, I don't know. Every generation has a bunch of them. Obviously, like photographers, or whether it be like more fine artists or like painters. But skateboarding is art, so it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
But everyone doesn't always translate it into other mediums besides skateboarding.
For sure.
So, yeah, it's always
skateboarding is just such a unique thing to begin with too. Like it in and of itself is art, and it's like a creative form of expression, and it's all about doing shit yourself. So like it makes sense that like drawing the graphics on the bottom of the board is going to be part of it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
I think there's kind of always been that heavy artistic or creative influence on skateboarding, like all the way back in like the late 70s and early 80s, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Peralta and like all those dudes, they were all like partying, raging. You could tell that the art that they were into, that counterculture kind of art style, and that's always had its fingers in skateboarding, in my opinion. You look at decks throughout all the years. I mean, probably Chocolate was like trying to, separate themselves from that counterculture style, a more corporate like logo.
Or like this, this is for adults. We're not little kids. We don't want like flaming skulls.
Yeah.
And like I totally get that. And that's it.
I love Chocolate and Evan Hecox, their like art director that's been with them forever, like the Chocolate logo. I get kind of what they were going for when they came out, because they wanted to separate themselves, because it was like an off-branch company of like H Street or whoever everyone was skating for before that. So it was like, we're this whole new vibe, this whole new, like, it's like urban, it's like city, it's New York, like it is pretty sick. Or like San Francisco. I don't remember exactly where they started, but it was like that big city vibe.
Totally. And that's again why skateboarding is the best, is because like you can express yourself and be whoever you want in skating, because there's going to be a scene for you and like like-minded people, you know?
Hell yeah.
Well, and look at all of us like older guys now that are in our 30s and 40s that are skating. We want all like the crazy zombies and the flying skulls like on fire and stuff on the bottom of the deck, because that's the deck I had, or like reminiscent of the first deck I had, in 93. Totally. That's the shape I want now, instead of we all have the mentality. There's no way I'm gonna be a pro skater now. I'm never gonna 360 flip a 10 stair. So go ahead and do that on your own. I want to be able to ride around and reminisce, and that's we're all going back to it. That's why these new shapes are so popular now, like the big poop wheels. It's rad to see that transition, you know what I mean? Or I don't, it's not even a transition. It's more just like this cyclical effect of the way that art is in skateboarding.
Totally.
That's rad. That's super cool that you're like influencing it, like ingrained in it now. And you're able to you're making multiple pro decks, like that lava lamp one. I don't remember the
Henry Gartland.
Yeah, dude, that one is like super cool because of the colors and the vibe of it. You know what I mean? That is, in my opinion, that is where the skateboard art is at right now. You know what I'm saying? You're capitalizing right at the right time with the right style of what's going on with that, bright colors and crazy graphics and kind of, I don't know. It's dope. It's dope.
Thank you. Yeah, that's like a thing that trips me out too. That some family members have pointed out is you're somebody who's influencing the skate industry or whatever. You're influencing skateboarding in this way. And I try not to think of it like that because that's almost a little too heavy. But I mean, it's true that I've pretty much this last couple years, 90% of my time is designing stuff for NHS companies. Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that's been produced has been stuff that I've done. So it makes sense that it's influencing skating as a whole in some way.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
That's such a trip because I don't think any working artists, I don't know. I can't speak for everybody, but I feel like you feel lucky to do a project, but when you're working on your project, you don't necessarily think of the significance of it. I think you're more worried about the output, your output, or how, you want it to be to a certain level for yourself. Yeah. And then if it does well, it does well. And if it doesn't, you're all right, fuck everyone.
Yeah. I go through the same motions on every project where it's I get assigned it. I'm fuck yeah, I'm stoked. This is going to rule. Then I try to come up with the ideas and I'm okay, I've got some options. We'll see what they go with. They pick something and then I'm penciling it out and I'm just all right, I'm feeling good. They like it. This will be cool. And then halfway through the penciling and inking, I'm oh, what the fuck? I don't know. It's the imposter syndrome of I don't know how they haven't caught on at this point and I'm still here. This is it. This is going to be the last one. They're going to know I'm a fraud or whatever. But then it's finished and I send it out for approval and I'm hey, what do you think about this? And then the email coming back is dude, this is insane. Next level. Great job. And I'm okay, cool.
Fight another day.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sigh of relief. You're oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so funny. I don't think that ever goes away.
No.
It's just always going to be like that.
It sucks, but it's also that's what keeps me wanting to keep improving my art and keep bettering my work,
yeah.
If I was I don't want to ever just phone it in for a company like Santa Cruz. And then, cause then I'll know, looking at something, I'm fuck, okay, that is totally just cranked out. Just this isn't a job. This is my career. I want to live up to this legacy of artists,
Hell yeah, dude. That's awesome. That's a great way to have, outlook to have on it. Cause if you didn't, like you said, you can tell when someone phones it in and you're all right, fuck this shit. It's not authentic.
You always, not everybody can tell, but I know as an artist, I can look at a bunch of boards that are up in a skate shop and I can tell the difference between somebody who is more of a folk artist kind of thing, a Neil Blender kind of thing, versus somebody that is capable of doing more, but is just busting something out.
Yeah.
You know? And I just don't want to be one of those people.
That's true because Josh Harmony, the artwork he does, or Louis Barletta, the shit they do that might seem simple for graphics doesn't seem unauthentic to me.
No, it's it's awesome,
But yeah, I could tell when something just seems almost like a little too cold or a little too digital, or like the fucking, I don't know what you're doing here, but
Yeah, I really am not trying to be a shit talker, but it's like, it just seems like maybe somebody was trying too hard to make it look a certain way that didn't really have enough of like a background in the style they were trying to emulate.
no, I hear you. It'd be like if I did a deck, like for a company, people would be like, "What the fuck is this?"
But I bet like you could do a deck and it would be awesome. But like it would be like, if I don't know what your artwork looks like, but it would be like if you were trying to emulate an artist that's a style of work that you don't do or know how to make.
Right. Yeah, no, I get it. I 100% like get what you're saying. It just seems unauthentic. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
very like produced, or like too much art direction,
Or not enough of it. I don't know.
I don't know.
I feel weird talking about other people's artwork sometimes, but
It's all right, dude. Yeah. Hey,
I'm vague enough that nobody knows what I'm talking about.
we're here just to talk some shit, bro. Don't worry about it. No, all right. We can switch it up though, because I did want to ask, like, besides like being, an amazing illustrator, you're a DJ, you play music. You were in that. I don't know if you're still playing now that you moved to LA with those guys from San Diego, with the Joe Blows. You played like a couple like street fairs and that shit. Like we went and saw you. It was fun, man.
Oh, you saw us at that?
Yeah.
That was our first show. Yeah.
The OB one where you're like, we don't know these songs.
Yeah. So that I'm actually going to play music after this with the guitarist of that band.
Oh, sick.
So I don't really know what the future of that band is, because our drummer is in San Diego and me and the guitarist is up here. It's been a little difficult to kind of do the long distance band stuff. And then like with COVID, we've just kind of taken a break. Pre-COVID, we put out like a 7-inch with Sweatband Records. So we made a record, we put it out, and we were also on their like LP comp they put out, but we haven't played in quite a while. So we're going to try to get the gears turning and actually be a band again.
Hell yeah.
But that's like, I've been doing more DJing during that time, because it's like, I can't always rely on other people. So like, this is something I can do by myself.
Sure. Yeah.
Totally. Have you been spinning a lot like in LA? You've been doing that?
Yeah, I've been, right now it's only been like a couple times a month, but it's starting to pick up more. I've been doing a night up here called Club Dead, and it's all just like weird, obscure, like 70s and 80s early punk stuff. And that's been really fun. And then I go down to San Diego and DJ at the Tower Bar as much as I can. Like I'm DJing down there next week. Say Thursday?
Yeah.
Week from today, I'm DJing at the Tower Bar with my buddy Beetle down there.
Unfortunately, this won't be out for like 5 weeks. So sorry, dude.
Gotcha, no worries. But yeah, so it's been fun DJing. It's a good time for sure.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's fun. I saw. I don't know if you were DJing. Did you DJ at Tower the night Night Watch did the psychedelic issue release? I know you did the cover for that one.
Yeah.
When they had the like party down there.
I might have been. I don't know. That's too far back for my brain to remember things.
I feel like you probably were, at least were up there, because I was like, oh, I didn't know he did this. But
I think I maybe did, but don't quote me on that.
I was roaming around getting ham-skied on Paps.
That's like one of the biggest things I miss about living in San Diego, is just being able to go hang out at the Tower Bar.
Dude, every Tower Bar, I lived right behind Livewire off of El Cajon right there.
Awesome.
So that was kind of like my weekly, nightly haunt.
Hell
so
yeah.
We got lucky with like those cool like rock and roll bars. Tell Two Club rules up there. Or down there, I should say, I guess. But yeah, how's LA though? Like, you finding spots and like kind of filling out the scene? Do you go out much, or do you just go out to do events and stuff?
I when we first moved up here like 4 or 5 years ago, we were going out more. Definitely like with COVID, we haven't been going out as much, but we still go out. Like the bar I DJ at mostly up here is called Little Cave. And that's like 3 doors down from the tattoo shop I do my appointments at.
Okay,
so that
cool.
and even before DJing there, like that was the main place I would go hang out at because it's like not far from my house. It's a cool hang. But there's a bunch of good like kind of rocker dive bars up here. So there's always like some place to go or something to do and lots of good shows and bands and all that.
Yeah. Nice. All right. So I know you're like kind of, I don't know if this is true or not from your Instagram shit. It seems like you're pretty like vintage, like throwback. You enjoy like kind of that nostalgia of like the 50s and 60s, I guess you could say.
Oh yeah.
Some like greaser culture and like
can't tell from the stupid hat I'm wearing right now.
I was gonna say, and some tiki drinks. So I wanted to ask you, dude. You live in LA now for the past 5-6 years. Mm-hmm. All the legendary like tiki bars are there. What ones do I go to? What ones do I avoid? Because I've only been to a couple, and I want to get your take on it.
For sure. Well, so let's see. The main one that I was going to up here was the Tiki T, which is awesome. Like Tiki T is great. It's tiny. It opened in 61.
Yeah.
Just super old school. Me and my buddy.
How many people do you think fit in that bar? Like seriously, like 18?
I'm gonna say, okay. I'm gonna say like max. It's probably like 35.
Whoo, that's on a good day, dude.
And that's like people standing in the aisles and stuff. Yeah. But that's what's cool about it is like you have to go early or you have to go like on a Tuesday evening if you want to like actually get in there.
Yeah, like a midweek happy hour at Tiki T is probably like the move for sure.
Definitely. What other bars up here? I think the Tonga Hut's up here. That's cool. I still haven't been to the Bamboo Club in Long Beach, but my friends DJ are there all the time and it seems pretty cool. I don't know. I'm blanking right now. There's a ton of tiki bars up here, but I'm just.
Yeah, I was just thinking because I've only ever been to like Tiki T and I've been to a couple like speakeasies, but not necessarily like tiki bars up there.
Right.
But I was trying to like vibe it out because I know like apparently like that whole tiki cocktail culture originated like in LA, like in the beach area.
So right? that's the big debate. So actually, before I got into anything, when I was a kid, like middle school, early high school, I got super into 50s and 60s tiki culture stuff. So I was this like high school kid on message boards with like 40 through 60-year-old adults arguing about like who was the maker of this mug or whatever. So I got super into that and I learned how to carve tikis. And that was like one of my first jobs was I was a tiki carver. So I got to I've been to a ton of tiki bars like long before I was 21 because I was just a nerd about this stuff. I don't remember where I was going with that, but what?
It said just so we can know that you used to carve tikis, bro.
Yeah. But that was the debate was for a long time, they couldn't figure out who started the first tiki bar. Was it Trader Vic in the Bay Area who opened a spot called Hinky Dinks before Trader Vic's that had like a Mai Tai, or was it Don the Beachcomber in LA? So that's like the age-old debate of like who started it first.
Right. Yeah, I've bartended since I was 21, and with like the rise, I guess, in like classic cocktails, and then more prevalent like tiki culture coming back, like in the bar scene. I kind of dove into it a little bit because one, the drinks are delicious.
Yeah,
like the vibe is cool, right? So it's like, dude, who doesn't want to act like they're in Hawaii sipping some concoction of rum that tastes like bananas?
For sure.
Like, let's go. And so I got into it, and my understanding was it was the LA, the Don the Beachcomber was like the guy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know the whole like controversy and story. I just know that like the story goes that they were surfers and they would go follow the surf like into other countries and part-time bartend and like brought these drinks to like other places and brought like their rum or like the takes on their rums and stuff back to LA, developed the shit, and this guy made like a master book of like everything that has a bunch of codes and shit. Yeah, it's like the Da Vinci Code of cocktails or something.
Well, like even before those dudes, like how the tiki bar concept started was every like guys from America being stationed in the South Pacific for World War II. So they were all stationed in Hawaii and like all these small islands, and they would like bring that stuff home after the war, and they would turn their like home bar or rumpus room or whatever into like a tiki bar. And like, then that was like the idea to like, oh, somebody needs to actually open up a bar like this and like serve rum and like these fruity drinks and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's funny too how like the military, regardless of like your stance on like the American military, like influenced so much those cultures of like bars and tattooing. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like Navy tattooing culture is like some of the most traditional shit besides like I'd say American traditional
Yeah.
that there is, you know. It's crazy. It started kind of the American culture of it. It's just these guys being in these different ports around the world and getting indigenous tattoos. Fucking wild.
Yeah, you know, you're about to go get shipped off somewhere where you keep seeing the headlines of how many other 19-year-olds are getting blown up every day. You're like, well, fuck, I should get my girlfriend's name on my arm or like get this thing for good luck so somebody recognizes me if I die or whatever. And I mean, it really just is like that was the whole industry for a long time.
Fucking wild. Dude. All right. Well, we're coming to the end of time here, dude. But thank you so much for kicking it with us and bullshitting. I appreciate you on such short notice. You know, hopping out. Like I said, the episode won't be out for a few weeks, but I'll keep you posted on that.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh yeah, man.
Cool chatting with you, man. Very nice meeting with you, and keep up the dope ass work, bro.
Thank you. Much appreciated, guys.
Well, we'll have you back, dude. There's a bunch of shit I'm sure I didn't get to talking to you about that in 20 minutes. I'm gonna be like, damn it, I meant to ask him this.
Sweet, but, yeah. Anytime you need a talking head to chime into something, just let me know.
Hell yeah, dude. Before we go though, once again, Live Rad Studios on Instagram. What's the website? Is it liveradstudios.com?
No, so I've been taking like 5 years to make a website and still not made yet. We have a store envy, which is like where you can buy the skateboard stuff for now. And that's like storeenvy.com/live-rad. It's on the Instagram for the skateboards, which is Live Rad Skateboards.
For sure. So yeah, Instagram, Live Rad Skateboards, Live Rad Studios. I'm sure the links in the bio, both those, you can go check everything out. Any upcoming projects or stuff you'll be doing in like a month that you want to mention?
I'm going to be at SkaterCon. Well, that'll be over by the time this comes out. I don't know. I guess we have some cool projects coming out with the skateboard company. Two of the things we're talking about doing, if you're from San Diego, we're going to do a capsule of Tower Bar skateboards. And then we're going to do a capsule of Roberto's Taco Shop 13 skateboards.
Oh, yeah.
So there'll be some fun, like San Diego local kind of homages there.
No, that's awesome, dude. Thanks again, man. It was nice talking to you. Nice meeting you.
Likewise. You guys take care.
Take care, brother.
Yeah.
This has been another episode of the Rat Nest Podcast. You can catch us every week for video on YouTube, audio wherever you get your podcasts for streaming, ratneststickerco.com for print stickers, shirts, and more, and Rat Nest Podcast on Instagram to check out the latest episodes and who's coming up. Jim?
I'm Jim. Later.
Bye.